Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Command Score studio. Welcome to the show. Okay, so an unexpected leak / now unexpectedly confirmed spoiler. That is a really awesome brand new spirit dragon. Let's jump into it. Betor, I think I'm saying that right, but I'm not sure. Ancestor's voice. This is the initial image that we got on Reddit that was apparently a leak. And then later in the night, it actually was, I believe, confirmed to be real. Someone in the comments below let me know if that's not the case, but that's what I heard on it, essentially. So, yeah, this is a brand new Spirit Dragon. It is one from the pre-cons, I believe, so one of the either face commanders or backup commanders, regardless. It's a very cool design. Let's jump into it. A 3/5 Spirit Dragon, and apologies for the potato quality image, but that's just what it was. For 5 mana in total, an Abzan Flying Lifelink at the beginning of your end step. Put a number of counters on up to one other target creature control equal to the amount of life you gain this turn, or to up to one target creature card with mana value less than or equal to the amount of life you lost this turn from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is a really cool and awesome Abzan commander that basically does, hey, what are all the Abzan things? Okay, shove them into one card. And it does that. It's like, okay, I care about counters, I care about life loss and life gain, all at the exact same time, all with this massively awesome ability, and all that can be built in a certain way that is near and dear to my heart. One of the very first decks I ever built was actually built in this way. I mean, in a slightly different way than I would build this one, but still. Basically, life swap, or life control, is a very interesting and unique kind of strategy, and this commander can really take that to the extreme. Because, again, by maybe taking your life total down to disastrously risky amounts, it's quite fun, when you're like, all right, just gonna go down to 1 for no reason. You're like, oh gosh, all right, that player out there is pretty crazy. But then if you've got a way to maybe reset your life total, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, yeah, you just gained a ton of life as well then. So I'm like going from like 40 down to 1, back to 40. There are ways to do that. And by doing that, then you're like, okay, cool, I gained 39 life this turn. Awesome, 39 counters on this creature, which really can do some really cool things with those counters. And also, of course, reanimating a massive thing out of your graveyard to the exact same time. Yeah, there are a lot of really awesome and amazing things that you can do with this commander. Some broken things as well. Let's jump into those and more and talk about all of that on the quick take for this one. Okay, let's start things off with some artifacts that I want to highlight. And again, there is a link to all these cards in the description below in case you're interested in any of them. Though this is, I believe, again, one of the pre-con commanders. So some of these might be included in the deck around it. That being said, just bookmark the thing, and be like, okay, just in case later on, when the actual list comes out, these could be some good upgrades if they aren't actually in the pre-con. One weird old card that, sees almost no play, but it's awesome. Tainted Sigil, artifact for 3. Tap, sacrifice that you gain life equal to the total life lost by all players this turn. This is a really cool artifact that is great in very specific strategies. Now, it could just work, miscellaneously if 2 opponents are, hitting each other by a ton. You're like, oh, okay, cool, players just lost a bunch of life. Awesome, I'll just gain a bunch of life. But with this kind of a deck, again, we've got some ways where we can actually lose an absurd amount of life, and we'll talk about a card here in a little bit that does that. But basically, okay, I go from, again, let's say 40 down to 1, and I'm like, okay, tap, sacrifice this. I gain all the way back up to 40. Awesome. I just gained 39 life, and that's a ton of counters on something. Dragonstorm Tarkir. Again, taking advantage of the inherent power of one of our creatures, after we place all those counters on something, this can be a very easy finisher for us. Basically, it's equipment you attach to something, and the equipped creature has Defender and pay 2 tap. Other creatures you control gain trample, get +X/+X until after X this creature's power. Yeah, just being able to just massively pump your entire team, like Pathbreaker Ibex style. I mean, obviously that would work too. But yeah, being able to say, oh, okay, entire team, take advantage of that massive power spike on that creature. Again, in that scenario, +39, and maybe even more to all your creatures, you're gonna win the game. Next up, Eternity Vessel. This one is a bit expensive, a little outside of my budget, but maybe than yours, a very cool card. Enters the battlefield with X charge counters on it, where X is your life total. So it just basically sets that number and says, let's make a note of that. Well, landfall, whenever land enters the battlefield you control, you may have your life total become the number of charge counters on it. So being able to say, okay, again, I go from, say, 40 down to 1. And there's 40 counters on this thing. Cool, I played a land. I go back up to 40. I just gained an absurd amount of life and lost an absurd amount of life on the turn. Next up, creatures. One I want to point out right away, Walking Ballista. Again, decently expensive. There's a more budget-friendly version of this, essentially, or, ish. But that being said, Enters battlefield, X charge counters on it, or X plus 1 counters on it, I should say. Pay 4, you get a counter on it. Move a counter from it, 1 damage target creature or player. This basically can turn those counters into damage. So you could essentially say, okay, I turn life loss into life gain, which turns into damage on my opponents. So it is kind of a convoluted thing a little bit, but not really. It is a very powerful effect to just, end step, all right, again, 40 to 30 counters on this, 39 counters, whatever the number is essentially, and then say, oh, okay, I hold all my opponents hostage, and just say, oh, okay, I've got lethal on all of you right now, kind of like, Aether Flux Reservoir style, essentially. Like, okay, I've got lethal on all of you right now. Do my bidding, never upset me, or you're gone. Goodbye. Thank you. Children of Corliss. You can sacrifice it to gain life. Go life, you've lost this turn. Kind of like a mini fog-ish, like a, oh, that didn't happen kind of card. But especially, again, with a commander like this, when you are actually potentially trying to just eliminate your own life total and then bring it back, it's a great way to do so. Again, just 1 mana to do that. Next up, Esper Sentinel. Again, something that does care about its own inherent power. Whenever opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card unless they pay X for X its power. Again, you're going to be very easily able to get a certain amount of counters on this. Your opponents can never pay that amount. It's like, oh, okay, cool, yeah. Do you have 30 mana lying around? No? Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess I'll draw that card. Thank you. Good card draw engine for you. Devoted Druid. Again, this is another way to turn those counters into something more. Tap for a green, put a -1/-1 counter on it, untap it. So repeatable tapping. Again, with that example of 39 counters, cool. All right, awesome. I've got, 40 mana from this if I want it on a turn. Just a giant mana producer. But for 1 extra mana, a repeatable one, Iron Blade Elite, a 1/1 human warrior with vigilance, enters the battlefield under your control whenever any human does, I should say. Get a counter on this, tap for X mana of any one color, X its power. So yeah, you just get a bunch of counters on this, and all of a sudden, again, you're tapping for basically 40 mana with this. So any of these creatures that care about their own power, you can do a lot of cool things with them. Moving on, Mischievous Poltergeist, a card that I kind of referenced earlier, but basically there's a lot of different kinds of versions of this card. This is one of my favorite ones, essentially, though. Pay 1 life, regenerate. A repeatable, free activation to help you lose life. And again, most strategies out there, most scenarios, you'd never be like, well, I don't want to lose life. This one you do. You want to lose life, and this is a great one because it protects itself. It is hard to deal with. You can just pay 1 life whenever you want without paying mana into it or tap it or whatnot, and all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, I protect it. It stays around. Awesome. Good for me. So all of a sudden, again, you can just set your life total. Again, you can go from 40 down to exactly the amount of life total that you want to get down to. If you want to get down to 1, great, go down to 1. You just lost 39 life. Cool, you can reanimate something massive out of your graveyard thanks to your commander. But also, again, if you've got one of those ways to reset your life total, do so. You just gain 39 life. Cool, throw 39 counters onto something like, Iron Blade Elite and just go crazy. Or put them on Swirl if you want to end things. Whenever a permanent opponent controls put a grave from the battlefield, you get a counter on this, so this can already just grow large on its own. That being said, beginning of your upkeep, it's got 1 or more counters on it. You may remove all of them. If you do, exile everything else with based on that amount of counters. Essentially, you're going to get rid of everything. This is just a massive board wipe for you. Sorrowful will stay in play, but everything else is gone. So it is something to consider for that. Wild Beastmaster, though, again, kind of like, Dragonstorm Tarkir, but on a creature itself. When it attacks each other, creature control gets +X from X to its creature's power. So again, you go to your end step, you're like, okay, got a massive amount of counters on this. If anyone can deal with it, good for you. If not, next combat, you're all gone. Next up, Crystalline Crawler, getting another way to get a massive amount of mana. Basically enters with counter on it for each mana spent to color cast it. It basically probably going to be 3 for you, obviously. You can tap to put a counter on it. That being said, most importantly, remove a counter from it at 1 mana of any color. This is just a giant mana source for you where you can just take off counters whenever you need to for mana. Again, in that scenario, it's like, oh, okay, cool, I've got 39 extra counters on it. Good luck to my opponents trying to stop me from doing anything when I've got this much mana just sitting there. Alenda the Dusk Rose. Yes, please. Another creature dies, get a counter on it. So any creature, including your opponents, which is great. That being said, when it dies, you make X 1/1 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink. Keep in mind, lifelink Rex is this creature's power. So again, you get a ton of counters on it thanks to your commander's effect. And all of a sudden, when this dies, pop! And all of a sudden, you just get an absurd amount of vampires that have lifelink, so you have a lot of other ways to gain even more life in a massive army. You're gonna win. Okay, you're just gonna win. Lisa Fang of Silver Quill helps out in another way as well. Got the Mentor, that's nice. Whenever another non-tone creature control dies, if it counters on it, create X, tap 2, 1, white and black, Inkling creature tokens with flying. With flying, Rex never counters that add on it. Yeah, again, make a massive army whenever any of your creatures die that had all those counters on them that you threw onto them. Massive army of evasive 2/1 flyers. Yes, please. Rampant Rejuvenator. Do you want to get every single land in your deck out? Cool. 0/0 enters with 2 counters on it. When it dies, search life for up to X basic land cards where X its power, put them in a battlefield, then shuffle. At the very least, I mean, this is like, again, a 2/2 for 4, like, explosive vegetation, but delayed. But again, with this commander, it's like, okay, so much more. All of a sudden, you just get an absurd amount of counters on this, and again, you literally get every single basic out of your deck when this gets taken out. Lovely. Guardian Scale Lord. Has backup, so that's nice. It can grant its ability essentially to another thing for a turn. Flying, when this creature attacks, return target non-land permanent card with mana value X less from your grave to the battlefield, X the creature's power. So this is kind of like an addition to our commander's effect where it's like reanimating things. This is like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I've got an absurd amount of power on this. I'll just bring back whatever I want on attack, and probably take opponents out with that evasiveness too. Ever Halcyon Witness, a very strange, weird, amazing card for this commander. First up, it's a 4/4 lifelink, and lifelink, we know why that's good with this commander, because gaining a lot of life is great, obviously, so just at the very least, if you get counters on this, you're like, okay, cool, got counters on this, I swing, I hit someone, cool, I gained a bunch of life, awesome, but more importantly, pay for, exchange your life total with it. Basically, swap out your life total with this creature's power. So, again, just in this scenario, you're at 40 life, this becomes a 40/4, and you've got 4 life. Awesome, you just lost 36 life, reanimate whatever you want out of your graveyard at the end of the turn. That being said, again, if you hit with this, again, you're gaining a ton of life. Or if you just pay 4 mana to swap it back, you just gain that life again. So yeah, swapping your life total, that kind of stuff, does consider it as losing life and gaining life. That does count. So essentially, again, when you are going from, again, let's say 40 down to 4, back up to 40, you just lost 36 life, gained 36 life, and all of a sudden, again, you're like, okay, 36 counters on something? Good luck, opponents. Moreland Rescuer, you want to get everything back? When this dies, return any number of target other creature cards with total power, X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, X is this creature's power, exile it. Again, just like, oh, it's 4 power, that's not a lot. But all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, again, I put 30 plus counters on this thing. Yeah, bring everything out of your graveyard into play. Lovely. Triskelion, budget-friendly version of Walking Ballista, basically. 1/1 for 6 mana, enters with 3 counters on it, move a counter from it, 1 damage any target. Again, a win condition for this commander where you're like, okay, a lot of counters on it, hold my opponents hostage, you can't do anything, because if you do, you're gone. Resolute Archangel, another way to reset your life total, enters the battlefield if your life total is less than or equal to your starting life total, becomes equal to your starting life total. A great, for this commander, repeatable effect for us. You might build in some, like, sacrifice outlets, or at least some, like, ways to sacrifice creatures like Village Rites. You know, sacrifice creatures, draw 2 cards, those kind of things. Basically, again, a way to use and abuse an ETB like this. You're like, okay, cool. Again, I went from 40 down to 1, back up to 40. I'll sacrifice this. It's in my graveyard. I'll bring it back out of my graveyard. It comes back, go back into 40, all those kind of things. So basically, you're having ways to, again, pad your life total back up. Next up, Verdant Sun's Avatar. 5/5 Dinosaur Avatar for 7 mana. Again, mana is nothing for this deck, again, once you get things going, because you're just cheating things out. When this other creature enters battlefield under control, you gain life by the creature's toughness. That is massive. That is huge. That is an easy way to say, oh, I lost some life. Well, I gained some life because all of a sudden I just bring a creature out of my graveyard back at the end of the turn and gain some life back from that as well. True Conviction, yeah, another way to gain life, of course, is just lifelink, and granting lifelink and double strike with this is absurd. Giving it to all your creatures on this enchantment, that is huge. I love this enchantment. I wish it was budget friendly. It is not for me, but it might be for you. Yeah, again, basically, hey, I just got all these counters on this creature. Next combat, swing, hit you twice, hit your creature twice, whatever I'm hitting, I don't care. I'll gain 60 life. Great, good for me. And, yeah, you're going to be getting more counters on things and just having fun and taking your opponents out. It's great. Congregate, instant speed way to just, well, gain an absurd amount of life in Commander. Target player gains 2 life for each creature card on the battlefield, or creature on the battlefield, I should say. Again, this is very easily, like, at least 20 life for the most part, and it could be, like, depending on what decks you're playing against, like token decks, or again, if you've got a bunch of creatures in play, it could be, like, 40 life as well. So just like, okay, cool, out of nowhere, gain 40 life, end of the turn, 40 counters on something. Good for me. Treetop Village, a really good land for this kind of a commander. Enters battlefield, tap for a green. Pay 2 mana in total, becomes a 3/3 green ape creature token, or creature with trample until end of turn, still a land. Making it into a 3/3 trampler is huge, and again, being able to have this on a land, again, at your end step, you get all of those counters on, say, something like this, and then if your opponents don't have an immediate way to deal with it, it's going to be very tough for them to stop it, because it's a land. There's not a lot of land removal out there that is utilized in Commander. So essentially, unless they've got some instant speed removal on your turn, you're going to be able to have this creature that is, again, not evasive, but has trample so can get damage through. And again, if you have 39 counters on it, it's a 42/42 trampling creature that can just swing through and avoid basically every board wipe your opponents will ever have. Have fun. Next up, Buried Alive. Speaking of fun, yeah, any kind of like Entomb effect can be great with this commander because you set yourself up to get the exact creatures out that you need. Whether that's, again, one of those creatures that's like, oh yeah, all the mana in the world I could need, or like a specific combo or whatnot, or like, hey, yeah, cool. Yeah, something that I need in play that can get all those counters on it. Or, you know, Verdant Sun's Avatar, gain a bunch of life. Whatever it is, go tutor up those creatures, put them in your graveyard, and reanimate them out of your graveyard thanks to your commander. Finally, though, of course, there are just like simple effects like Revenge. Double your life total, target opponent loses half their life rounded up. An effect like this is like, oh, okay, cool, I'm at 40, I go to 80. Great. You don't even have to go like down in life to actually gain so much life to gain a lot of value from your commander. With certain things like this, there's an instant speed one as well. But yeah, any kind of like life doubling or life setting, there's also ones that go down where like, okay, everyone's life total is the exact same to the lowest player's life total. Yeah, that's quite a really good effect where it's like, okay, cool, again, I set my life total to 1. Everyone's at 1. Oh, okay, cool. I set mine back up to 40 with this other card, Children of Corliss or whatever it is. All right, everyone else is at 1, I'm at 40, I win the game, basically. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things you can do in a life swap strategy, and this commander definitely allows you to do them. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. Make sure you comment below with your thoughts on this one, and of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.